Hello boys, girls, trigendered pyrofoxes. Today we'll be watching some feminist slam poetry. If you don't know the goal of this method of poetry, it's to rattle off as much bullshit as possible in the smallest amount of time, so the ideas pass by so quickly you can't see the obvious holes in them. But since we have the power of the magical pause button, we'll get to see the holes in all their glory. But before we begin, please take a look at the like to dislike ratio.
Ten lessons for the white sons we might have.
Let us pray to God, Jehovah, Vishnu, the Seven, and your local weirwood tree that these people don't ever have kids, not only so that they don't spread whatever genes got them in this position, but so that no one ever has to experience the hell of having them as a parent.
10 things we don't have to say,
But must teach
because
you.
if we don't,
Every inch you grow could be another nightmare you'll give somebody. One, when you're crossing the street, it's a privilege to only have to look both ways.
you'll seldom have to worry about what's behind you.
Really? Because 88.9% of all murder victims were male. It seems white women have a lot more of that alleged privilege than most white men you want to lynch. But it isn't privilege. It's location, location, location. I doubt any race or gender could feel safe while walking through Detroit. It's about how shitty the neighborhood is. But if any more well-off people buy property in a neighborhood to make it less shitty, you'd be whining about gentrification.
In fact, you might be the reason someone else can't stop looking over their shoulder.
So let me get this straight. So because some white men commit crimes, all white men should be blamed? Some black people commit crimes, so should all blacks be blamed? Won't the social justice warriors and the alternative right just fuck off already?
Two, when you fall off your razor scooter,
You'll always have a Band-Aid the same color as you.
Yep, we're at that level. Social justice warriors whining because of the color of band-aids. Every time you think that they're sunk to the bottom, they just grab a pickaxe and start digging deeper. If you look for them, you can find band-aids with Shrek on them. Next to no one does, because no one gives a fuck, not even tiny children.
Even as you get older, you'll be able to patch up any
and
damage you make.
Your Band-Aid boxes will teach you
That excuses aren't made for melanin.
3,
For every art project that tells you to draw pictures of your classmates,
there will be a crayon marked apricot or salmon or peach.
Your friends will call it skin. Pay attention to how early you learn to label colors.
Yes, we are actually whining about what kindergarteners call their crayons right now.
4, when you play cops and robbers in the schoolyard, you will always find yourself grappling the gun.
Your hands will not be created to hold
You'll
consequences.
too often notice objects shaped like pistols. You will be born with trigger fingers.
You'll pretend you have a gun. Oh no, black boys on the contrary will never do that.
5, the first time you have a crush on a girl at school.
Don't you dare pull her hair or throw things at her.
Yeah, a tiny amount of teachers are fucking idiots that think that when boys are bullies to girls, they're in love, something they can't even physically experience yet. If only the state system didn't make it almost impossible to fire them. A much bigger number of idiotic teachers will actually react much stricter when a girl is the victim than a boy.
Because your teachers will have no problem convincing you that abuse comes with love, and setting a relationship on fire is just another candlelit dinner.
6, when you get older.
Your friends will start repeating their parents word for word. Take note, their living room commentary doesn't have to be yours.
So they're saying that any sons they might have shouldn't just accept the opinion of their parents. I say that's the best advice ever. If any poor sods who had the misfortune to be raised by these people, disregard everything they have ever told you. They're idiots. But no, they didn't mean that. If these two pieces of shit had any children, they'd go through every method of abuse in order to keep them from having an opinion of their own. They just forgot the topic of their own poem because feminism rots the brain more than meth, bath salts, and My Little Pony combined. They meant all white boys in general because it's the general population that are racist, not them.
Do not let your privilege sit amongst the throw pillows.
7, the first time you walk past a girl you find attractive.
And boys will be boys, courses through your veins.
No, retards. People say, that boy got muddy? Oh well, boys will be boys. Not, that boy's a rapist. Oh well, boys will be boys.
Like adolescence, like instinct, like something inherently lethal.
Swallow your whistles.
Even if they burn the back of your throat, feel the comments rot in your mouth. Get used to the flavor, just like she has. 8, if a
The world doesn't owe you to keep comments or sounds that might hurt your fifis away from you, which fundamentally is 100% subjective. One person's insult is another person's compliment. You have to reach the emotional maturity to disregard them. Take it away, Tywin.
A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
sexual assault joke triple dog dares itself out of your mouth. Feel how uncomfortably it sits in the air around
to take
Don't make jokes about topics we have arbitrarily decided are off limits. The two things that social justice warriors never seem to understand is that 1, jokes are fiction, and 2, fiction doesn't harm anyone. How many women have been raped in Game of Thrones? 0, because none of the Game of Thrones is real. Jokes, in fact, many times help us talk about the hardest things. The worst thing they might do is remind a trauma victim of their trauma when they're in their mourning process, but guess what? Literally anything ever said or done might do the same.
note of how much pain was trying to settle there
Before you scattered it, tampering with leftover wounds is an act of violence.
Is reminding people of trauma violence? No, Patrick, reminding people of trauma isn't violence. Violence is when you violate people's person or property. No, Patrick, horseradish isn't violence either.
9,
the first time you're stopped by a cop.
he will see a rambunctious teen with too much time on his hands, a good kid who made a mistake. He will not see.
Cops aren't the goddamn Borg. They don't think all the same. Different cops have different opinions about blacks, whites, and they have different strictness. That isn't the problem, and if it was, there'd be no way of solving it. The problem is the power over life and death that they've been given.
Thug, you will not think threats. You will think, Father. Think, haven't I seen you around? Think, this shouldn't take long. The first time you're stopped by a cop, you get to come home.
Yes, all those white people that got killed by cops, twice as many as the number of blacks that have undergone the same fate. Just fuck them. They don't matter. They're not human. Completely ignore them. Divide the races even though they have a common problem to solve, then conquer them. Now brace yourselves. A full sexist mental breakdown is coming.
10, we know the boys will draw influence from. We've seen too many to ignore what you're capable of.
Women are just as capable of murder, theft, rape, and every other foul deed this species has ever done. Just like a tiny minority of women chose to do these things, so does only a tiny minority of men.
Don't want you feeling guilty for an existence you can't help.
Yes, you do. We both know it.
But I don't want you to become another boy I would cringe at.
You'll be constantly reminded of how much you can conquer,
of how much space has already been stolen for you.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a square inch besides the male bathroom that is male-exclusive these days. But thanks to people like these, the number of women-only gyms, safe spaces, and other bullshit only keeps growing.
Never have to concern yourself with the aftermath of your leftovers.
Society will teach you that the existence of other people is your playground.
That'll only happen if you run for office, something women are just as capable of as men.
And the schoolyard bully claiming king at the top will look exactly like you.
Oh, so blacks are incapable of being bullies. Makes sense. I'm just kidding, it fucking doesn't.
And you will not be raised to step on the rungs with fingers curled around them.
You'll be raised in a world where you don't have to look at the kids who have fallen
If it makes you uncomfortable. But in my house, you'll learn to help them up and not expect thank yous.
Unless they're of the wrong race or gender, actually skip the unless. Social justice isn't about kindness. Social justice is about imposing arbitrary authority on everybody, no matter where they're on the progressive stack. Be it a flamboyant homosexual with a different opinion than them who gets silenced by people who invaded his podium while university staff actively prevents his security staff from intervening. A girl that drew fan art that didn't conform to social justice or orthodoxy and thus got harassed until she attempted suicide.
To be an ally, like your life depends on it.
During World War II, the Romanian army was basically used as cannon fodder bait by its German and later Soviet allies. Why do I feel they still got a better deal than the social justice warriors allies get?
Because it doesn't, but it should. To the white sons we might have. You will not be silent in the face of destruction.
So speak out against your bullshit?
Not under my roof.
How much are you willing to bet they'll never have their own roof?
1, 2,